go. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. This week we've got a show for you. So feeling pretty proud about that. I'll be honest, it's maybe not the most prepared show we've ever had. But do not blame my co-host, because this is all on me. All right, so it's a good show, though. There's a lot of breaking political news. There's a lot of important Kentucky political news to cover. Really was kind of those, like, what are we going to talk about? There's so many things. How do we kind of focus here? So the session is back underway. They took a bit of a break and came back. And so we're going to talk about what's going on in the session. We're going to talk a bit about some important issues that are being raised by some of our advocacy partners. So that's got a great call to action for you. And then how are our political candidates kind of responding to the political landscape? So we got, of course, big statewide elections happening in November, but first a pretty vicious Republican primary, at least, to get through. So I think that's going to color a lot of our political news over the next few months for sure. But before we get into all those stories, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? I know you are, because you're here watching us, listening to us. You got a lot of choices out there for your interweb content, and you landed on us, so you must be somewhat intrigued by the prospect of making a more progressive Kentucky, which, we got our work cut out for us, folks. We know our state is deeply red, with supermajorities in both the state Senate and the state House. The General Assembly is primarily focused on cutting taxes for the rich, cutting social services for the poor, defunding public education. So if you want different, if you want a commonwealth that works for all of us, join Progress Kentucky, support our campaign to turn our commonwealth purple, make a donation at our secure Act Blue website. That's one way you can help out. The interweb tools we use are not free. They're not super expensive, but we got monthly expenses, and you could help us to cover those with a donation. It's not a tax deductible donation, folks, because of course we are involved with politics, but we are in fact a C4 organization. So let's see, help us spread the word. That's free. You can just share our content online. That don't cost nothing. Spread the word that we are tired of the GOP ignoring the needs of regular folks in Kentucky, and we think our commonwealth is worth fighting for. So let's go ahead and check in with our co-host this evening. Let us know who you are, where you are, what does your protest sign say today? And you, in the comments, you can say what you got a protest going on today, and we can show it on the screen, or it can just live in the chat. So at any rate, let's see. I'm Aaron, coming to you from Childsburg, which is, of course, a deed-restricted community in the outskirts of Lexington, right there, that growth boundary. The great thing about being that close to the growth boundaries, I don't have to ride my bike very far to see beautiful horse farms. But if I look the other direction, I just see a sea of beige siding. So thank you, Ball Homes. All right, and my protest sign says, public education is more important than tax cuts for millionaires. That's what my sign says today. All right, let's check in with our co-host, Martina. Martina, are you there?
I'm here.
Fantastic. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining Kernels of Truth this evening.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. So where are you coming from? And then what does your protest sign say today?
Well, good evening. It's Martina Jackson, and I am in Madison County, specifically in Richmond, Kentucky. And my protest sign says today, put Kentucky kids first.
Nice. We should do that. Somebody needs to do that. That's for sure. It doesn't seem like the legislature is really that interested in it. All right, and look, we got Doug watching. That's awesome. His sign says, "Bring on Sine Die." Is that how you say it? Sine Die. Never been in the legislature, so I don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, can't come quick enough for
Okay.
Doug.
Yeah.
And I think for all rational observers of these two super majorities. Annabelle, what's your sign say? It says, check out Sierra Enlow. I don't know who Sierra Enlow is, I'll be honest.
She is running for. Oh, that's me. I was hearing feedback for a second. She's running for Commissioner of Agriculture, I believe.
Oh,
Oh,
Annabelle's
yeah.
new boss. Are
Very
you
cool.
are you working on a campaign, Annabelle? Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations. So we will find out more about your boss soon. We do want to have all the candidates on before the primary. So
Mhm.
does Sierra actually have a I think she's actually got a contested primary. Is there a couple of folks running for ag commissioner on the Democratic side? Annabelle does not know, so she probably needs to figure that out. If it's gonna probably have
Yeah.
something to do with
I'm not.
your
Yeah, I'm
it'll
not sure how many people are in that race.
yeah, it'll influence your strategy, right, Annabelle? If you've got an opponent in the primary, don't sleep on Jeff Young. Oh wait, no, not this race. All right, let's cover some news, shall we? Martina, are you down to chat a little bit about the news of the week?
Yes.
Yeah, some hairy stuff to sort through. I think the first story we wanted to cover was yesterday. The House and the Senate were back after their break. They had a very contentious hearing about education, right? So really did seem like there was a lot of partisan hackery going on in terms of covering education. They brought the education commissioner, Jason Glass, in.
Yeah.
Dr. Jason Glass, and talked about how, he was, I think, the lead witness, which, of course, he's the head of the Kentucky Department of Education. So that makes sense. As we all know, the head of these different cabinets, the different departments, appointed by the governor. So not necessarily folks who are going to see eye to eye with these Republican lawmakers who are running these committees. But they leaned right in to the culture wars, a perceived woke agenda these Republicans are
Mhm.
claiming that are driving teachers out of the workforce. Of course, that's a big focus here, right? We need more teachers. What's the reason teachers are leaving? A lot of folks are saying it's, because we expect way too much of them and we don't pay them enough. But Republicans didn't really like those answers. So well, no, clearly it's about pronouns. But Dr. Glass pushed back on that, saying the people who are making pronouns and transgender issues and woke issues a priority in our education are politicians. They are not the things that are in our schools, Glass said. And some folks in the committee applauded that after he said it. So, it seems like he was, saying the right things about there. Like, look, this is not something that we need to be talking about. It's not something that's taking up time in actual classes. That's not what teachers are spending their time on. But they really don't like the fact, Republicans don't like the fact that there's a Department of Education guidance that calls for using a child's requested pronoun. So the fact that there's a guidance that says if there's a rule in that district, then the teachers should follow the rule. I think it's pretty much what Dr. Glass said, and he stands by that statement. If there's a rule requiring teachers to call students by their preferred pronouns, they should follow the policy, which, of course, was a big issue for Randy Adams, who was the principal of an Anderson County alternative school. I think we've discussed this in this on the show in the past, but he said that it was a sin against God for him to call a person anything other than biological gender, and then criticize the state guidance for urging him to follow their own rules there in Anderson County. And he, of course, got into some hot water there after he became quite a kind of cultural, woke, anti-woke warrior kind of hero to the right. So that's kind of where we are right now. These are not the issues, I think, that are and we'll hear from Nima, I think probably later on the month, kind of her take on this, what she's seeing from a kind of education labor organizer. But, like, this isn't what teachers are spending their time on. This is what politicians want them to spend their time on. So that's, I think, what I would say. But I don't know. Martina, any thoughts about this issue as it's roiling the State House?
I think the commissioner is spot on. We shouldn't be this shouldn't be at the center of our classrooms for educators, whether it's K through 12. And for teachers to take that on is so much additional labor to navigate when that's not an issue. Meeting the educational needs of our students is what is, and it's like if you can if we can call, recording artists by whatever name that they want to go by, it shouldn't be any different than going by the name that a student wants, and what they need to reaffirm who they are. And so I do think our legislators are doing Kentucky teachers and our kiddos a disservice by making this the core tenets of academia when these are trained professionals, and this is far from what they should be focused on or be, targeted for.
100%. Yeah, I could not concur more, Martina. But it does seem like it was not uniformly viewed by the Republicans there in Frankfort that Dr. Glass was pushing a woke agenda. Representative Killian Timoney, who is a Republican, who is from Lexington, and is a Fayette County public school employee. They took an opposing view, who's saying massive sweeping statements that we make have so much power and pit people against each other to make education political, but it's not. So yeah, a Republican, a politician who is also a teacher, saying, yeah, you guys are barking up the wrong tree here. And we have been called out for never knowingly having a Republican on this show, but Representative Timoney seems like, it seems like the type of common sense person we should try to talk to. So maybe we'll reach out there and try to for a first for the show, have a Republican on the show. But,
I've seen good things from him when it comes to education.
Yeah, it's like if it's your actual job, you should, we should be listening to that person, right? Not people who have been elected on school boards, for political reasons, right? But the actual people who are practicing the craft, those are the folks we should be listening to. So at any rate, we'll hear from, as I said, Nima about this issue. I'm sure that she's going to have plenty to say, and it's going to continue through this session, I'm sure. That they're not done with it. But speaking of education and politics, Martina, I wanted to give it to you to talk a little bit about one of the folks running for governor right now and how they've stepped into the issue.
So speaking of craft, as you said, the Kelly Craft, Republican gubernatorial candidate Kelly Craft, on Monday, just 2 hours after a post was put up of an audio clip of her saying she wanted to dismantle the Department of Education. And so her response to that was that she said, no one can hide that our current state board of education and Department of Education are a mess. And going on the same lines as that's been pushed in our state legislature, is that pushing woke agendas in our schools. I'll dismantle our current board and start over. I'll empower parents, send more resources to the classroom. Again, in the woke nonsense being pushed in our schools, end quote. And so this type of language and terminology is, being used as a way to discuss what is happening in education, and in particular in Kentucky. And that is, again, along the lines of saying there's the issues around saying, making sure that teachers teach the ABCs, not CRTs. And that's in reference to critical race theory, and taking this concept and just it being a catch-all criticism by conservatives for a host of diversity and anti-racism efforts. That was written, coming from looking at the Kentucky Lantern. And so, which I would agree with, that it is continuing to push the narrative around what teachers are teaching and what they aren't teaching, and putting it in terms of, again, culture wars, looking at LGBTQ issues. This Doug Price said, "Can one say dog whistle?" I mean, yes, that is to rally the base around folks who don't want to have culturally responsive teaching. CRT is a theory, and it is practice in law, or not practice, but it's studied in law as well, and other academic spaces. So it's more common to find CRT is being discussed in higher education. That is not what we're seeing through K through 12. So again, it's misusing terminology and creating a narrative to rally a base up, in my opinion.
For sure. This is just one more way they can lean into the culture wars. They can show people that they are, the guardians of the white way of life. I mean, the right way of life. It's just this garbage that, is just showing that they're going to fight for scared white people, and I don't know. I think last night was, of course, the State of the Union. I don't know if folks watched. Yeah. I watched to see just the ridiculous response from, those Republican backbenchers, yelling, heckling, saying that, the president was lying when it was clearly from Rick Scott's campaign plans for Republicans to get elected in the Senate was, we're going to sunset every program every 5 years. And that would include, of course, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of them. So, they don't know what, what's actually happening in their own party. They also are just idiots, hey, we've got this story we're going to tell you about illegal immigrants flooding from the border to bring fentanyl to us and to kill our kids, right? So that's their story, despite the fact that all the analysis shows fentanyl does cross the border. It doesn't come with illegal immigrants. It doesn't come with people who are getting, arrested. That's not a very good game plan for bringing drugs across the border. It's coming with people who are going through the checkpoints and are, mostly Americans, because those are the ones who don't get much scrutiny, smuggling this stuff back and forth, right? So it doesn't matter what the facts are, because they got a good scary story. So Kelly Craft, went on down to the border to have a scary video, scary ad that she could run talking about fentanyl. And so when President Biden was talking about the issue, he got yelled at by some ill-informed Republican saying it's his fault that fentanyl is coming across the border because fentanyl, they're catching more of it under him than under Trump. So he's got better run borders, and that's his, it's insane. I don't know.
They'll ignore that story though.
Facts. Don't let facts get in the way of a good.
What are those? Story. We don't know facts.
It's very
but
disappointing.
The scary stories, we know that well.
And I did something I don't encourage. I was on Facebook, today getting ready for this show, and I looked at Rand Paul's site, and people love that guy, and they are so scared that they're so thankful that he is signing up to that he's keeping them safe. I'm what? I don't understand this whatsoever. But yeah, here we are. I don't know. All right, so we are, as I mentioned before, we've got a little bit of a, this show's been a bit of a work in progress. So I do want to just, I have to admit that our initial guest had to cancel. Something came up, so we don't currently have a guest, but and we're down a co-host. So things are a little bit, fast and loose tonight on Kernels of Truth.
It's all right. So we got to roll sometimes.
Sometimes you gotta do it, and you know what? It's Kernels of Truth, so I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you, people.
This is true to the name, so yeah, we're staying true to our roots right now.
So I'm seeing some stuff on my texts, and maybe Kimberly's gonna join us, and that's great. And then I just got a phone call from somebody I was trying to get in as a, to help us with our lack of a guest. I don't know if he'll be able to join us or not. We'll see what happens. There's, a story that I really wanted to cover. I think it's an important story, and that, because it relates directly to what we talked about last week in our call to action. And folks, remember we had somebody from the Kentucky Center for Economic Policy on for our call to action, encouraging people to speak out, to weigh in against HB1. Of course, if you're familiar with the naming conventions of the state house, HB1 is the most important bill for leaders of the House of Representatives, right? That's why they gave it HB1. And we encouraged everyone to call the Senate because HB1, as they do, sailed through the House in the first few days of the legislature. And this is, of course, the effort, if you remember from last week or last year when we talked about this ad nauseum when they initially passed it, the efforts of the Republicans to ratchet down the income tax. So, it's like fewer and fewer taxes on rich people, trying to, do a couple of things, put more taxes on kind of consumption as opposed to income, which of course is, weighted against the poor. And then also just have less money for the state, right? So they really don't want the state to fund things. So unfortunately, that bill, despite the calls to action, I'm not calling any of our viewers, I'm sure all of our viewers clicked through, sent the email, followed up with a phone call, but the Senate did not care. And today they voted on a straight party line vote to pass HB1. So that would take the state income tax from 4.5 to 4.0. And that's, of course, the kind of, the way the law from last session works is that each year they can cut it by, I think, a half until it's gone. That's their goal, is to get rid of it completely and to blow, multi-billion-dollar holes in our state budget. This move would, take $1.2 billion out of the budget, which is, more than they spend on higher education in our state. So really a big blow and disappointing for sure.
Right.
All right. So let's see. I will say this. That's not the outcome we wanted. Obviously, we encourage people to take action because we want it, we want that thing to work. But man, it's just the fact that it is tough sledding when you've got these GOP super majorities. So that was a 30-5 vote, which was a party line vote. Those are staggering numbers.
It's insanity, honestly.
Yeah. So we definitely would love to hear from any of those five. We would love to hear their perspective on, what it's like to be there in the Senate with those kind of just enormously bad odds, and what we can do. So what this means is, of course, went through the Senate, went through the House already. It'll now go to the governor. I think he has said, he's keeping an open mind on the legislation. I think that's probably a charitable way of describing it. I don't, he is running for re-election, right? So is there any utility for him to die on the hill of a 0.5% increase or decrease rather in an income tax, which, that's not necessarily something that people are ever that excited about, right? Like paying taxes. The guy who's pro-tax, that might not necessarily across the board win you lots and lots of votes, especially if you're trying for those independent voters, Republican-leaning independents. I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit torn here because the other reality of it is it doesn't really matter what he does, right? Because there's no way he vetoes this and they don't just immediately overturn his veto.
Right. They can override it with the votes.
Yeah. So maybe he just leaves it in his pocket or whatever and lets it become law. He doesn't have to sign it. He doesn't have to veto it.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, I'm not his political counselor, but it does seem like
yeah. To me, one thing that does come to mind is to say, like, what is the best thing that could happen in this situation? Could our legislators respond with finding ways, finding more revenue? Will they respond in that way? And I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that maybe we will look at sports betting. Maybe we will look at medicinal marijuana, all of these other things that potentially are also high on the docket for some folks as priority. So, the best outcome, I think, is to push for that revenue, but also, again, we'll have to see, because there, like you said, what wiggle room really is there to stop it? And there's really none at this point, other than either folks saying, hey, we don't want this, please don't vote for it again, as citizens. But at the same time, we can push too for better streams of revenue at this point that they've been putting kind of to the side and not wanting to address.
I think that's a really good point. I'm sure one of our other co-hosts who is joining us at this moment has some thoughts to share as well. It looks like Kimberly Cecil Jones has entered the website. Kimberly, are you there?
Hey.
I am here. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
You can hear me. Hey, how is everybody doing? So you want to know what I think about something?
Let's hear it.
Yeah. So
what can
HB1 passing the Senate. What's your take on whether or not the governor should sign it? Obviously it's the supermajority in the House and the Senate. Their number one priority. Doesn't really matter what he does because they will overturn his veto in a heartbeat. And absolutely, or override his veto, and they'll make this law with or without him. Going into an election year, is that the thing you want to say? Like, I tried to veto your tax cut, but I didn't. I don't know. What do you think, Kimberly?
I don't know. I'm scared to say. I mean, can I just say this? Can I just say, let's do something now. Let's work together like our wonderful president in the State of the Union last night. Is there any way between hell and heaven that we can work together for the people of Kentucky? Then I will be totally on board. But we will have a person that will know a lot about this, and that would be Senator Gerald Neal.
Yeah, so you think we can get Senator Neal on in the next week or so?
Yes.
Awesome.
Already got that taken care of.
Awesome. So I think we might also get Senator Thomas on here. He's, of course, a longtime friend of Progress Kentucky, friend of the show. And, I always love to hear from him because he always has an upbeat take on things, which my cynical soul needs to hear every once in a while. But yeah, so he could be joining us, I think, shortly. We'll see. So wrapping up that story, kind of the big news out of the House today, or the Senate today, was the passage of that bill. We will see which of us the governor listens to in terms of best course of action for that one. But I do think another story that's worth noting, and I'm excited to hear Martina's take on this as well. So Black History Month, last week we kicked off with kind of a focus on the father of Black history, who had a wonderful connection to Berea College, which is awesome.
Yes.
We now have another individual with a connection to Berea College, which is pretty awesome. So we're going to share this in the show notes and in the chat from the Daily Yonder, which is one of my favorite online publications, kind of rural America voice. But specifically, they have a wonderful Q&A with civil rights activist William H. Turner. And he has written a book called The Harlan Renaissance, Harlan, Kentucky, which is where he is from, kind of elevating the story and the perspective and the kind of history of Black Appalachia, which is something that, I think has been scrubbed from culture a lot, and the reality is there's just lots of folks in Appalachia that are African American that have a unique experience, and he just does an amazing job, I think, of describing that, but also describing his kind of passage from rural Kentucky into the kind of the civil rights movement, right? So somebody who spoke to massive crowds as a representative of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, somebody who led protests against Rupp because of his unwillingness to integrate the UK basketball team. So he was a student at UK and doing that work. He was, I think, actually in Martin Luther King Jr., Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s in his kind of procession for his memorial for SNCC, which is pretty amazing. And yeah, just somebody who sounds like he's got a phenomenal story. And I don't have any firsthand experience with him, but Martina, I don't know if you had any thoughts you wanted to share.
Yeah, so he did teach at Berea College, which happens to be my alma mater, and was well loved at Berea. The college itself has a commitment to Appalachia, so growing up, and being from Appalachia, that my family is Black Appalachians, that really spoke a lot of life into that narrative. That oftentimes when you have family that comes from rural areas, from mountainous areas that are Black, they're usually like, I thought, most Black folks moved into the cities. And so that was not the case for my mom in this sense. So for him to be able to teach and give a voice to that as a scholar, I think really helped uplift a lot of students at the college. But also it just made it just a stronger commitment to, I think, at that time, as students, to know that we can carry that narrative. So I'm excited to hopefully see him tomorrow. He'll be at Eastern Kentucky University as a speaker. So he is definitely continues to blaze a trail and help uplift that narrative as a scholar.
That's awesome. Dr. William H. Turner, amazing Kentuckian, amazing Black Appalachian, and somebody that, I think we could all learn a lot from, for sure. Kind of just his amazing track record of being in the civil rights movement
Right.
from the kind of earliest days. So, Kimberly, I don't know, any thoughts on Dr. Turner?
Yes. And not only that, he knew Alex Haley very well, the one that wrote the book Roots. And then his second book, was it called Queen? It was really about his great grandmother, I believe. But when you say Kentucky, when you actually say Kentucky and you say Black folks in Kentucky, this state has produced some of the most famous intellectuals in modern day history when you're talking about Black folks in this state.
Yes.
I just think it's wonderful. I learned so much on a daily basis, as you know, my quest of genealogy, of my quest of who's who in the state in which I reside. And it's just a great feeling. But I wish that people would know about some of the great contributions of Black folks in Kentucky, not
Mhm.
only just in Black History Month, because what do they say? And I totally am on board with this. Black history is American history, period.
Absolutely.
And it shouldn't be just contained in 1 month for 28 days. Although, you know, hey, we love Dr. Carter for that, the father being a Black historian. Uh, but it should be just history, you
Mhm.
know? And I bet if we had someone from a high school on right now, they would have never heard of Dr. Turner.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'm gonna make my daughter read this Q&A with him. He seems absolutely amazing, and yeah, I was not familiar. Was not aware, and just seems like an amazing Kentuckian who just helped our Commonwealth to no end. All right, so speaking about amazing Kentuckians who've helped our Commonwealth, I think we actually do have with us now Senator Reggie Thomas,
All
who
right.
coming to us live from
Yes.
Kroger, perhaps. I don't know. How
Actually,
are you, Senator?
Aaron is Myers. And see, this is what we legislators do. We work late, and then when we get done, we gotta shop and get something to eat because we gotta have something in our bites to sustain us for tomorrow. We have long days. But I got your text message, and so I'm glad to help you out. And here I am,
Well, I
shopping cart and all.
I appreciate it very much, Senator. I know you have had a long day, and I don't want to get in the way of you getting the sustenance you very much deserve and need. But yeah, I just wanted to get your take on, what went down in the Senate today. Obviously, HB1 passed on a party vote, but I'd love to get your thoughts about just watching that debate and watching it progress and kind of, what's your response to what the Senate did today?
And it's just frustrating, and it's bad policy. Uh, there, there's no way around the fact that this tax cut is only going to benefit one minor group of people, and that's the wealthy. Um, we have already put in place so many other types of taxes that are just going to be unfairly burdensome on working class people. As I mentioned today, if you own pets, you're going to pay more in taxes. If you have children, you're going to pay more in taxes. If you own a car, Aaron, you're going to pay more in taxes. And so we're shifting the burden on tax revenue from the upper class individuals to the working and middle class, and I just think that's bad tax policy. Period.
Absolutely. I mean, so we were talking about this before. Do you think the governor should sign this? Do you think he should kind of just let it go into law? Should he veto it? Should he kind of, can he die on this hill? Even though, of course, they can absolutely override his veto.
Well, Aaron, I just got to tell you, and this has always been my position. I can't speak for the governor. The governor's going to have to make his own mind up on that. All I can speak for is Reginald Thomas, and Reginald Thomas today voted against HB1, and so that's where
Mm.
I am.
Right.
All right. Well, what else do you see coming up? What's on tomorrow's agenda as far as you know? What are you going to be working on?
Well, tomorrow's agenda, is just approving going to be approving payment for a veterans residential facility in Bowling Green, which I'm for. So nothing controversial coming up tomorrow. I will say this: I think the excitement uh, is going to be in the education committee tomorrow because there's going to be some discussion about um, uh, changes that the education department wants to make with regard to children who are part of the LGBTQ community, and how they want to be called. Uh, so we're going to definitely see that debate coming down the pipe. So I suspect the education committee is going to be packed with people tomorrow on both sides of this issue, and that's going to be interesting.
Well, and it did seem like that came up today in the Senate with Senator Wise and Senator Berg.
Right. Yes. And that bill is coming before the education committee tomorrow at 11 o'clock.
Okay. Well, I heard a little bit of Senator Berg's comments on the Senate floor, and just impassioned defense of kids and trying to not make them the center of this kind of political hot button cultural war issue. But it seems like the Republicans are not going to listen to her.
Well, Senator Berg is right. This is killing our young people. And it's wrong. And it's insensitive. And I support her position in this endeavor. So I stand by Ken and her children. But yes, we're going to have to deal with it.
All right. So Martina or Kimberly, any question or thoughts you have for Senator Thomas as he bags his groceries?
I just want to know, what is he cooking tonight? I'm coming over.
I'm sorry, Martina. This is so last minute, but I these days I gotta multitask. So what's your question, Martina? It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. It was Miss Kimberly. She had a question for you.
Okay, yes, Kimberly.
So, what is the chance that the Senate can get together and really work for the people of Kentucky? You heard the State of the Union last night that President Biden gave, which was very encouraging and felt almost magical. Is there any way that we can get that in Kentucky?
Let me say this, Kimberly, and I want to be very honest with you. I don't think the Kentucky General Assembly is as dysfunctional as what we see in Congress. I do believe that there's more that we agree upon than we disagree on. There are certainly some sharp differences, like what you saw today, what you're going to see in this education bill, and those differences, Kimberly, we just can't resolve. We just cannot resolve. So that's my most honest answer to your question.
Senator, this is. I'm sorry, Kimberly. Senator, this is Martina Jackson.
Hey, Martina, how are you doing?
I'm good. My question is, what do you think the movement will be on sports betting and medicinal marijuana this session?
I think you're probably going to see two different approaches. I do think medical marijuana has a chance this session. I do think you having a lot of senators who at first were reluctant to vote for it are now willing to vote for it. So there have been some switches, some changes on that. I think that has a better 50-50 chance of passing this year, Martina. Sports betting will get a lot of interest very late in the session, the last week or so, but I just don't think sports betting is going to pass this year.
Okay. So we should encourage people to contact their senator and representative on that issue potentially.
Well, yes, they should. Of course, they should. Anytime they should contact them.
Well, yes,
Yes. But I would say, Martina, and I always say this. Aaron has heard me say this a lot. It's just not a matter of contacting them. I mean, if you're really serious about wanting to see some change, Martina, you got to come down and be present.
Right.
You've got to be physically there, and let the legislators know that this is so important to you that you want your voice to be heard. You're going to be present. You're going to continue to lobby for it, and you're going to make a difference.
I agree.
I appreciate that. All right, so Senator, I know you got to get moving on, but I don't have a senator to contact because my senator jumped ship and moved to Tennessee. So I wanted to check in with you. I know that you're very committed to ensuring that we have all of our senators. So Cassie Chambers Armstrong, I think, is running the end of this month.
February 21st. Let me give you the exact date.
Okay.
February 21st. Her election is February 21st.
And that's the state Senate District 19.
That's the District 19. That's correct.
And of course, that's awesome because then, that district, that Senate district will actually have a senator for some of the session, a little bit of the session.
Certainly for the most important part of it, it should, because once she gets elected and the election is certified by the Secretary of State, then she should be sworn in and she'll be able to serve immediately.
That's awesome. So I don't get that because I am Senate District 28?
28,
right?
28. That's right. Well, let me tell you where we are on that, Aaron. Okay. We're having our nominating committee meeting 1 week from tomorrow. So we will select a nominee on the 16th. Obviously, we don't have, we've had some interest, but I would say those that want to run, please feel free to put your name in the hat. The members of the 5 different counties, Fayette, Clark, Montgomery, Bath, and Menifee, will pick the best person, and that person will be our nominee.
But that election won't happen until when?
May 16th.
So that'll be during the primary, the existing primary.
That's correct. Right.
Gotcha. Well, hey, Senator, I want to let you get on home and get your dinner, and just say once again, thank you so much for stepping in at the last minute and giving us that first person perspective of what's going on there in the Senate. We absolutely appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Well, Aaron, I always appreciate, and you've been a stalwart with regard to public policy and public interest matters. So I appreciate everything you do. And of course, where I can help you or assist in some way, I will be glad to do it.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator. All right. Drive safe. Good luck tomorrow with the kind of less controversial day ahead of you. Are you on that education committee? Are you going to be?
I am on the education committee. Yes, I am.
All right.
Good luck at the circus.
I would like put it like that, but
okay. All right. Always appreciate our friend, Senator Thomas.
You're more than welcome. All right. Have a good evening.
All right. So, and then I think we just want to roll. I love hearing from Senator Thomas because despite whatever happens in Frankfort, he always has a positive attitude about it. He's always encouraging people to get more involved, and so I think his admonishment, if you care, show up. That absolutely is, that makes a lot of sense. And I think we've actually got a call to action that's very much along those lines. I don't know if anyone, Kimberly, do you have in front of you? Can you do our call to action? You there, Kimberly?
Yes, sir, I do. I had to take my mute off. you know. Well,
all right,
we love Voting Rights Day. Yes, we do. Together, Kentuckians can build a healthy democracy where everyone's voice counts. No exceptions. Right now, about 200,000 Kentuckians with felonies in their past still can't vote, and that's just not right. So join us in Frankfort at the Capitol next Tuesday, which is February the 14th, to restore voting rights to Kentuckians with felonies in their past. We'll meet at 9 a.m. to train and break into small teams and have conversations with the legislators throughout the day. Now, after that, we'll gather at 1:30 in the Rotunda for a rally led by people directly impacted by this issue, telling their stories. So join us for just the rally or hopefully for the entire day. Bring a photo ID to get into the building and try your best to arrive early. We encourage people to bring and wear masks. We'll have extra masks available as well. So if you have one, please consider wearing a shirt a button or a hat, whatever you may have, lifting up whatever organization you want to be supporting that day. And let me also say this, don't worry if you've never done anything like this before. We'll start with the training, and lobby teams will be made up of a mix of people who are brand new to this and others who have been doing it for years. So up on the screen, it should have the address that you can go to, the web address that you can go to and sign up. I will tell you this. If I am not working on Tuesday, believe me, I will be there. This is something very near and dear to my heart. And the more people that we can get the right to vote, the better our chances are of taking over the House and the Senate. It's just simple
Amen.
math, you know?
It's all about the math. I love it. I think Doug is going to be there as well. So you can wear your Progress Kentucky hat or your
Right.
Progress Kentucky button. Or, this is, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth is helping to corral groups and get folks out there. There's a lot of great groups who are very committed to this issue. So, yeah, spend your Valentine's Day in Frankfort in the legislature. Why not?
Show your
Well, I'm
love
just gonna
that day.
exactly showing the love. We need more love. What the world needs now is love.
100%. So much more love.
100%.
Or
Yes.
or maybe we need more politicization of, poor trans kids. Maybe that's what we need more of. I don't know.
We need more of everything in Kentucky. I'm just going to be honest with you, but I still have
That's a
hope.
fact. Yeah.
And
A lot.
as long as you have like 1% of hope, there is a fighting chance that change will come for
Right.
all people of Kentucky, not just some, but all people of Kentucky. Oh, and another thing I want to bring up real quick is you can go to the rally, you can go to the training on Valentine's Day, but guess what? You'll be home in enough time to go do the Valentine stuff with your honey bunny.
Sure.
Yeah. If you've got that to do, you can do it. You'll have time. It won't be like Reggie Thomas getting home and going to the Meijers at 8:00 at night. You just get to make your appearance, have a meeting with your lawmaker, grab them, say,
Right.
"Hey, this is important. Let's get this done," and then get on home to your honey bun. All right. All right. So this has been an interesting show. I want to thank you both for being here with me. Big thanks, of course, to Senator Thomas. Always love to hear that guy, and I love his willingness to just pop on from the
Right.
Meijier. but
He
yeah, I think
he never said what he was going to fix to eat.
he didn't. I don't think he heard your
I
question.
don't think he heard when you asked.
Oh,
And the audio is not ideal when you're doing this from your cell phone,
Yeah.
which you're putting down to run your broccoli, or I don't know what he was doing. Like, I don't have any.
What was purchased.
What do you think it
Yeah.
was? Do you think it was like maybe some of
I
that
feel
like
maybe some
sushi?
chicken was in there or something. I don't know.
probably something quick. Maybe it was a frozen dinner, a hungry man.
Could be.
Poor Senator Thomas had to get his own dinner.
Yeah.
Get on
That's
home.
the working man. That's
He's
the
the
working man right there.
we appreciate that, Jet.
We
All right,
do.
Kimberly, can you close us out?
Yes, sir. I sure can.
Wonderful.
We will be back next week. That is a fact. And I will be on here early next week. And that's a fact. But the disclaimer first. Wait a minute. What did you say, Aaron?
Sorry, I just swallowed a little bit loudly there.
You sure you weren't choking? Okay, so the disclaimer first, I got to do it. Okay, Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project, the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, known as CAVE, and are also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Production this evening was by our very, very own Annabelle. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Annabelle.
And you can't see us dancing and stuff, but you know what? Thank you to Nate for the theme song. It kind of gets us pumped up. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com, natosongs.com. And if you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, do not fret, my pet, because you can rewatch shows and see our source links on Facebook. Or if you can't look at us, then you can listen to us, and audio podcasts are available like Apple, Google, Spotify, basically wherever you get your podcasts. The logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. More information can be found at couchfiremedia.com. I just want to say, this has been a very, very good show. And thank you to Aaron, the host with the most, and our new addition, Miss Martina. I just love you, girl. Thank you so much for your intelligence, and also another woman on the show. Thank you. I won't have to be by myself when I talk about Aaron. But you know what, guys? I will say this also. We will be back next week. But this week, you've made it. You've made it through hump day. So you just have a few more days to go to work, right? So do something nice for somebody. It will make them feel better, and it'll make you feel really, really good. So I just want to say this to you. We will be back next week. Same bat channel, same bat time. And in the meantime, have a great rest of your week. We'll see you next week.